Hello, everyone. Josh Spence here again. Hope everyone's having a great day. I am blessed to have Coach Adam Enright here with us. Coach, how we doing?
Oh, it's a beautiful day here in Marshall, Missouri. The sun's out. It's about 85 degrees, so can't
Oh,
complain.
fantastic. Now, a little bit about Coach Enright. Uh, you began your collegiate career at South Suburban, then transferred to the University of Southern Indiana, where you started every game in the program's 2010 NCAA D2 National Championship season. And then you ended up following that up your senior year, playing in 55 games in 2011. After graduating, you began your coaching career right away, hit the ground running in 2012 at Chicago State University as their hitting coach, and then moved to University of Arkansas Little Rock in 2013. You eventually landed at Trinity Christian and was promoted to associate head coach prior to the 2018 season. During your time at TCC, you would coach in the summers, managing the Northwest Indiana Oilmen of the Midwest Collegiate League from 2015 to 18, leading the team to 2 championships during your time there. 2020 season embarks your second season at the helm for Missouri Valley College. Now, Coach Enright, what inspired you to get into coaching right after your collegiate career?
Well, I think what inspired me was being surrounded and kind of being put in the way of a lot of really influential people in my college career. My coach at South Suburban is a NJCAA Hall of Famer who's won probably close to 1,000 games. He's been there for 30, I want to say 33 years. Um, just a consummate hard worker, really good college coach who gets the most out of his players and runs just a top flight junior college program. And then I was also fortunate enough to go play for a coach named Tracy Archuleta at the University of Southern Indiana, who, um, you look up winner in the dictionary and he's it. He took a very average 500, record Southern Indiana program over in 2007. And since then, he's won 2 national championships and made, I believe, 4 or 5 appearances at the D2 World Series. So, having those 2 influences throughout my college career, made me say, this is what I'd like to do because the 2 guys that I got to play for did such a fantastic job and were such good leaders.
Yes. Would you say they continue to mentor you right now? Are they coaches you kind of lean on for advice?
Absolutely. In my first year at Missouri Valley, I called Coach Archuleta quite a few times because he's known for going to a program and completely turning it over in a good way. He was at a place called Wisconsin Parkside before Southern Indiana, and that is a really rough sell as far as the weather for baseball in the spring being poor. The price point is a little bit high. So, he had some challenges there, and in the past they hadn't been all that successful, and he turned them into a regional qualifying NCAA Division II program and did a lot of really cool things there before taking over at USI. So, my biggest questions for him when I took over at Missouri Valley were, what do I do at the beginning? What are things that change a program at the start? And the most influential thing that he told me was find the pillars, find the things that are really, really important, and make sure that those are solid. Okay, don't try to put everything you want in year one because your guys will be turning every direction and be worried about making a mistake or displeasing you. So, if your offensive philosophy is one of the pillars that you need to instill in year one, don't worry about how the dugouts get swept after the games, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
took that because I was that guy who was, no, I want it this way over here, and trying to do too much too fast. And he really was able to slow me down and say, build from the really, really fundamental things that you believe in as a coach.
Oh, that's great advice. Now, uh, can you tell us a little bit about the city of Marshall, where Missouri Valley is located?
Sure can. Marshall, Missouri is, if you're looking at a map, it's
Yep.
about 3/4 of the way from St. Louis to Kansas City. So if you just draw a line from St. Louis to Kansas City, we're 90 miles east of Kansas City and about 150 or so from St. Louis to its west.
Okay.
About 13,000 people in town. Your small average college town with plenty to do and plenty of things that cater to um, our college population, and the way small college towns work are, businesses and everything thrive during the 10 months that kids are on campus. So they want to make sure that they cater to, what the kids want and what the student body is in need of. So if it's an establishment that 19 to 22-year-olds are looking for, then that's kind of, the deal in town. The really cool dynamic about Marshall is what you don't see a lot of are those big school flags or big school license plate holders that a lot of other small towns have. So for us, the biggest big school near us is Mizzou. You don't see a whole lot of black and gold in town. You don't see any Mizzou Tiger flags. It's all purple and orange. It's all Missouri Valley, because it seems like everybody in town is connected to Missouri Valley in some way. They went there, they worked there, they had relatives who go there or went there, and it's really neat. What drives the community's involvement in Missouri Valley is athletics. We have the winningest NAI football program in the NAI's history. So people really get behind that. It's really cool to see a small liberal arts college with 1,500 students have such a well-attended football game or well-attended, tailgating area. Most NAI schools or non-Division I schools don't have a tailgating area. We do, and it's a really good time for those who partake in it.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of Marshall, Missouri. They want to see Missouri Valley continue to thrive, as it has for 130 plus years. And they really get behind the winners. You would think that the most rowdy fans at our games are football, because it's so well attended. But really, the most electric atmosphere that we have are our men's soccer games, because our men's soccer team has made it to the national championship game 2 of the last 3 years and lost in the national championship game. So, the winners at Missouri Valley are really, really well supported, and overall we're well supported. But, some of the atmospheres for an NAIA level, intercollegiate athletic competition are second.
Yeah. Now, can you enlighten us a little bit about the full schedule there, and kind of, what is kind of a regular day during the fall, and how do the guys work out?
Sure. So the cool thing about the NAI for baseball is that we are allowed the most contact time out of any 4-year level of college baseball. So Division I, Division II, Division III, none of those levels have player to coach contact time like the NAI does. We are allowed 24 weeks throughout the entire school year to do what is deemed baseball activity. So that's bats, balls, team stuff, team practice. So what happens is we use typically 16 of that in the spring for our season. We come back in mid-January, and we end typically around May 1st. And we use those other 7 weeks in the fall. So for us, we come in, we have a week of kind of meetings and acclimation. Where are my classes? Where do I eat lunch? What time do I do this? Just kind of letting guys get familiar with some things. We go over things like our student athlete handbook and just kind of some standard setting meetings to get guys clued in on how things kind of operate. Second week, we'll start lifting and throwing. So most of our guys throughout the summer follow what we give out as far as throwing and lifting schedules and plans. But for some that may not, because let's face it, some don't over the summer, we have a good on-ramping phase, especially for our pitchers, so that when we start throwing on the mound in mid-September, when we start our official team practices, we'll be ready to actually compete, not be hurt or shut down because we got on the mound too fast. So from mid-September, I think our first official practice date this year is September 21st. All the way to November 1st, we're practicing 6 days a week. And scrimmaging, trying to be as competitive as we can throughout that whole time. We will play quite a few scrimmage games against some 18U travel opponents where we can use it as kind of a recruiting tool. Also, we'll play some junior colleges and use it as a recruiting tool. But it just gives us a chance to let guys play and put some things in that we're working on as far as implementing some approach things or swing mechanics or what have you against someone that's not wearing purple and orange. So we typically go off day on Sunday, but we'll kind of slide that off day around. We'll lift 3 days a week. We just built a $4 million strength conditioning facility. We have 2 full-time strength coaches, both who played college baseball. And at the NAI level, I haven't seen a setup where we have all of these resources available to us, much like a Division I school has. So that was one intriguing thing to me, is that the investment in athletics, as far as facilities and staffing and resources and scholarshiping, I've not seen a situation quite like ours.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, how important is that strength and conditioning program to a collegiate athlete?
Well, I think it becomes important when they see the guys who maybe are 2-3 years into their college career, and those new guys see what those bigger, more physical players are able to do. The biggest thing for some is, when they get a mistake at the plate and they get a good pitch to hit, some of those high school guys, all they can do is single it. All they can do is hit a line drive somewhere and get on first base. Where the more physical guys, the more mature players we have that can do a little bit more damage are putting runs on the board, right? They're hitting balls off and over the wall. So in order to compete for spots and compete for, a job to where you're going to help us win games, that piece becomes apparent, because those guys who have gone through it for 8 or more months are hitting balls farther, doing more damage at the plate, throwing fastballs harder, spinning off speed harder and more efficiently, and at the end of it are more apt to do what we're looking to do, which is compete at the highest level.
Very nice. Now, in order to compete, I'm sure there's some eligibility issues within the classroom. They got to maintain certain GPAs. How do you make sure these players excel in that arena?
Sure. Well, we have an interesting dynamic as far as how athletics coordinates and works with the academic side of campus. So we have 1,500 or thereabouts students every year, and roughly 1,200 of those are athletes at Missouri Valley. So we've got over 30 varsity sports. We've got everything from baseball to football to rodeo to e-gaming. I mean, you name it, we have it. So with the high volume of student athletes we have, it was important that we devise a system that keeps the academic side and the athletic side in constant communication with each other. So there's no surprises at midterms. There's no surprises at the end of the semester. So every week from our student success office, I get a spreadsheet of what we call academic alerts. And those range from poor test results to unprepared for class, for missing class. You name it. If something in class happens that is detrimental to their academic progress, their name and that issue is listed on that sheet, and I can get on it that week, right? The following week that whatever happens. Instead of me waiting and seeing a 1.0 on a midterm and seeing if we can fix it in 8 weeks. On top of that, we do run some study halls. We have a really good learning center that allows us to scan guys in and out. So I can go into our campus anywhere system and look up, print off a report of baseball student athletes who have used the learning center and when they clocked in and when they clocked out. So for the first 8 weeks of the fall, we require at least 2 hours in the learning center so they can learn that it's a really good resource. There's people in the learning center to help tutor and really help them with any issues they have academically. When midterms come out, if everything's looking ship shape, no D's or F's, you're above a 2.5 and you're doing, really well to where we don't feel you're at risk for eligibility purposes, we lift those restrictions because we want guys to be intrinsically motivated, self-starters, responsible for their own careers. Now, if those guys aren't carrying the mail, so to speak, we then put them in 4 hours a week, and those are structured Tuesday, Thursday nights. I think our time last year was 4:30 to 6:30 or something along those lines. And we keep the oversight on the guys that need it for long. Some guys need the training wheels for a year and a half. Some guys don't need them at all when they get here, and it's just a case-by-case evaluation of when we can push those guys out of the nest or how long we have to keep our eye on.
Okay, so you've gone through the fall schedule, how they dominate both in the weight room, on the field, in the classroom. Spring comes around. Can you tell us a little bit about the Heart of America Conference and how does travel look? How do you get in the meals on the road? And how do you structure going to class and playing that schedule?
Sure. Well, again, with class, we're going to miss, every other weekend when we're playing in Iowa, we're playing in Nebraska, we're going to miss a day of class. So in the spring, again, the Learning Center comes into play because there are people there who will proctor tests. There's opportunities there to do some classwork things, beforehand or after we get back. And again, that's just our institution understanding that we have so many student athletes, we have to be accommodating, we have to be flexible. We have to allow these athletes to enjoy and partake in their athletic competitions and make sure that their experience on the athletic side is what they expect it to be, and not have to worry about fitting things into a very rigid schedule academically. So when we go on the road, as long as our guys are proactive, and that's one thing that I'm very adamant about with our guys, is that when they're going to miss something, they're in communication with their teachers before it happens. They don't show up after they come back from the weekend and say, what did I miss on Friday? It's a conversation that's had at the beginning of that week because they know they're going to miss. The Heart of America Conference, I came from a NAI conference a little farther north before I came here, and the level of play in the Heart of America is, putting it lightly, stiff. It is very, very good. We had two pitchers in our league, not last year, but our last full season, 2019, drafted both by the Milwaukee Brewers. One has a really good shot of making it. He's now, 96 to 98, a 6'11" right-handed pitcher. And, those type of guys seem to always pop up in our league. It seems like everybody's got one of those, whether it's a grade issue out of high school or junior college where they're only NAI eligible, or they go to a Division I school and they don't quite get what they're looking for out of that experience, and they end up at a school in our league. And it makes for a really fun series and makes for a really fun season because everybody is, beating up on everybody. And there's nobody in our league who you roll in and you say, okay, here's 3 wins. It just doesn't happen. That being said, going through half of this season, we had 2 teams that were ranked in the top 25 in our league for the NAI. And that isn't including, neither of those 2 teams were our conference champion from last year or our conference tournament champion from last year, or a team in our league that has made 5 straight NAI tournament appearances. So you look at our top to bottom, our league, everybody is a viable NAI postseason contender who could go in and win a regular season or win a postseason conference tournament. And again, it's really neat to see the dynamic in our league because there's a lot of different styles or ways that some programs go about winning, and they all seem to work, for what they have going on. So it's really, really high level baseball.
I appreciate you sharing that insight. Now, when it comes to recruiting players, talent aside, what are some attributes you're looking for in a high school player?
Well, obviously the first thing is grades. You want to see that there is not only a strong, GPA, uh, you know, depending on where they're from, test scores or marks in their high school classes, but there's also that upward trend. So you don't want to see someone for their first 2 years of high school do really well and then things start to taper off junior, senior year. That's a turnoff because they get to college and things get more challenging, and you don't want that trend. The other thing that's really important for us recruiting wise is communication. So, if we ask for a document, if it takes that individual 2 months or a month to get us that document without any real reason other than they're just dragging their feet, it's another turnoff for us, because we want people who are proactive about getting to the next step, getting everything, squared away as far as crossing T's and dotting I's. And then the last thing that I think is really, really important is, when we have a phone conversation or we have somebody on campus and we get to talking about what they're about, we want guys who we feel will fit into our culture of inclusion and team oriented guys who will pull on the same side of the rope, so to speak. I think at our level and at every level of college baseball, it's the teams that surround themselves with guys that they feel really comfortable about protecting and fighting for and playing with are the teams that are not only most successful, but most enjoyable.
Absolutely. Now, you brought up a really interesting point in regards to seeing the trend of the player throughout their high school career. I think, not to get off track from our conversation, but the tradition here in Australia, I'm not saying tradition in a positive way, but we kind of get to our junior, senior year, and then we start reaching out to these college coaches. Whereas I feel in America, they're starting to reach out and bridge the gap with colleges around the age 15, 16, their freshman, sophomore year of high school. So this is kind of a loaded question, but as an international player, would you say it's in their best interest, the earlier they can reach out, the better, to make that connection?
Well, that's a really good question. It is loaded because there's a lot of answers to it. The first thing that I would invest in, okay, and this is where I think some American athletes, not only in baseball, but baseball is definitely in this boat, they get a little bit ahead of themselves, thinking, they have to get on people's radar at 15 or 16. But the first thing that they need to invest in is development. Okay, transparently speaking, if you're running a 7.860 and you're throwing 72 miles an hour, you don't need to be spending money on a travel organization that's going to play in front of Vanderbilt and Clemson and SEC and Big 12 schools. That's not important for you right now. What's important is that you find people who know that will be invested in your future as far as, hitting some strength standards, making you a better mover, making you a more efficient machine, so to speak, in the way that you go about your measurables in baseball. Because that's some of the first things that colleges look for, whether it's in front of them in person or in videos. So I think it's really bright and shiny for our domestic recruits or prospective student athletes to get to these showcases and get to these tournaments and put out these really well put together videos before they invest the money and the time and the energy into their development. So I don't think that it's necessarily important to do that, and it's certainly detrimental to do that if you're not ready to be exposed to those type of coaches.
Wow, that's incredible perspective. It's kind of like those, putting the cart in front of the horse at times. But it's definitely an interesting subject, especially here in Australia, because we're so far away and we might only have one or two opportunities to play in front of colleges. But I think a big component in regards to getting recruited is making that connection before you get into the States, so that you kind of start formulating that relationship. Now, you do have a couple Aussies on your team. I hope they're not too much of a hassle for you. Can you tell us a little bit about Sam Eads, your sophomore there?
Sam Eads is probably the smartest person in our program. Well, he's the smartest person in our program, easily. He's kind of a genius, and it's a little scary. He actually put together for us basically an app that tracked all of our pitch locations and what happened on those pitch locations. And I don't even know how many pitches it is, but 24 games worth of pitches, and some of those games we gave up quite a few runs. So he basically teaches himself. So he started off as a catcher. He was here before I got here. Yep. And was a catcher. And with him being as smart as he is, he's like, I'm never going to hit at this level, so I'm going to teach myself pitching. Currently, I think he's about halfway done with the Driveline Foundations of Pitching certification, and he's basically built himself into a mid-80s arm with 3+ pitches for our level. Now his challenge is just kind of not only the proprioceptive ability to just repeat and like not lose it in the middle of an outing. So like he'll throw a couple good ones, throws a couple bad ones, and then it's bad ones from there on out. And then just the ability to compete, within situations where there's some pressure, earned runs out in second, third. Like how do you control your breathing and compose yourself to continue to do what you do? And that's just from lack of experience pitching, because he really didn't do it before. But he's been huge as far as helping our guys understand some of the Driveline protocol and some of the analytic stuff that we've implemented this year. And I've told this to everybody, even though he's not the most talented guy on our staff, there's nobody who's made the strides and the improvement that he did over 10 months. So I'm super excited for him to come back, because I know him by himself, just pretty much learning it on his own. He's going to come back a much more refined product that we're actually going to get to work with more in a competitive setting to teach him those kind of things. Oh,
very nice. So he's trending in the right direction, I hear.
He's the man. Yeah, I mean, he's
awesome.
He's the man.
Now, if I'm from Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, and I'm looking to play at Missouri Valley, can you give us some tips how we can connect with you, and kind of how can we bridge that gap?
Sure. So, I mean, if you're at that point where you say, okay, I feel like my skills are at the level to be competitive in college baseball, 100% send us an email that isn't just a blanket email. Hey, coach, I would like to play at your institute. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I get 50 of those a day. And if there's not something in there that says to me that you're targeting Missouri Valley specifically, I usually just delete it. Because, we want kids that have done a little bit of research, or guys that have done a little bit of homework as far as, okay, they offer my major. It's a good place for me because our campus is so diverse as far as having 55 countries represented in a 1,500 student, by population. And they like what's going on with our baseball program by either looking at our website or following our Twitter page or what have you. There's got to be something that is specific to us for us to really get interested in it. And then videos never have to be anything elaborate. If they're pictures, 10 to 15 pitches. For me, preferably, I'd like to see it from behind the pitcher's perspective, so I can see the story of the ball, right? So I can see what the ball does. And on the other side, some mechanical view shots are also good, but again, I can see that from behind as well. And then, for hitters, same thing. I'd like to see things from the catcher's perspective, so I can see the story of the ball. Like, what does the ball do off of your bat? Defensively, just like a showcase, if you're an infielder, ground balls in all directions with a run-through play, see some athleticism. But that's what gets the ball started for us. That's what gets us to say, okay, tools are there. Let's start the vetting process of character and kind of what you're about and what you're looking for, and see if it'd be a fit. I've also done a lot as far as reaching out to international guys via Twitter, just because it's easy. A lot of guys are getting connected with things like Flat Ground app and JUCO Route, and it's really, really helpful, and it's free to just throw your stuff out there and see kind of what college coaches find you interesting from the athletic side, and then kind of go from there. So those are the two best ways to really get things going. But video really always helps when you're there, like when you're at that point where you need to start sending video. Get it out to those schools that you feel like you really want to be.
Ah, fantastic. Well, Coach Enright, can't thank you enough for your time today. It's been incredibly insightful, and I hope some more Aussies can, or international students for that matter, can be a part of your program.
Okay, well, we got two coming in. We've got Bailey Pierce and Joshua Bishop coming in next year. So,
fantastic.
all three are going to be pitchers, and if we get a staff full of Aussies, and I'm all for it. But I thank you, for what you're doing and trying to bring awareness to what the process looks like and how to get yourself in the best position to come to America if that's what you want to do and play college baseball. It's huge. I don't think there's enough information out there, and there aren't enough people doing what you're doing. So I think it's huge that people are spreading the word about how to get yourself to that level.
I appreciate the kudos, but it couldn't have been done without your insight. So again, thank you very much, Coach. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Absolutely. You too, Josh. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.